We're gonna
button pusher.
open it up here.
Here's the money pile for.
And we will call this the San Carlos Computer Club meeting for Tuesday. This is our 25th meeting of the 23-24 season. I call it a season because I leave for Alaska soon. That'll be the end of this season.
That's right.
We, in case you guys haven't been keeping track, I've done two.
Over the years or just this season?
That doesn't seem right, does it?
Well, that's starting at COVID.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That's switching to virtual meetings when we couldn't meet in person.
But we had virtual meetings when you were in Alaska.
Well, no, I don't think we did. Did we?
Don't we have meetings in the summer?
No, I think that was something
Oh.
we started after I
Okay.
started the virtual meeting.
Okay.
You know, I had a podcast of our meetings going for a long time, and I would stream live if anybody was interested in listening to the audio. But we started doing YouTube meetings. Well, yeah, you're right. We did do some YouTube meetings. I got into YouTube meetings streaming live, and then COVID hit, and that's when we switched to purely virtual meetings. So I guess that's where my count is from.
COVID.
Is COVID count.
So if I created a new account on Roku using PayPal, they couldn't use the account because they wouldn't know my login.
Well, you know, you can make a Roku account without a payment method.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need to put a payment method in a Roku account. And if you do the Mexican Roku, then Roku will give you a bunch of Mexican channels.
Yeah.
And so you can just flip it. You'll automatically have some TV service on that TV. I mean, it'll be Mexican, but what do you expect? You're in Mexico.
Exactly.
Right? So you turn on a TV and flip through
Go to
channels, you're going to find Spanish-speaking
Go
channels.
to the beach.
Well, yeah, that is. We're talking about Christine's TV situation, which we sorted out, Jim. We sorted out what was going on with her her smart DNS.
And what it was?
I think it was a bunch of confusion.
Mainly, I think
right?
there were two conflicting things in the Deco mesh system.
The only thing that I can attribute it to, because what it was doing was it was pushing out the right DNS IDs to the clients, but it wasn't authorizing. It wasn't seeing it as being set up as correct DNS. What I found was the Deco had a firmware update that needed to be installed. I don't know how it could be related.
But she's got the Decos that I've got.
She's got the X55s. I think.
Oh no, it's different because mine took out all the DNS settings when it got its update.
M5s?
And I was been like that for a while, and I finally started looking at it because it doesn't bother me any. And I know I put them in. Here's my paperwork. They're gone.
So Nick says, okay, if it fails again, you know what to do? I said, well, today and tomorrow I might, but in October I won't.
It did not make any sense because it was putting the correct IP addresses.
I knew it was probably the updates that screwed it up.
What it's not updating is it's not updating automatically.
Oh, you don't have yours set to update automatically?
Yeah,
I do.
We do.
No.
We did.
Oh, I think we changed it to update.
Yeah, I think it was, but we kept going back and forth because it wasn't taking the new numbers until you figured out you had to go someplace else.
I think Jim's referring to the firmware update.
The firmware on your Deco.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's set to do it automatically.
Yeah.
And it did it and took out the.
I really don't know why, but it was not working. And what did we do to sort that out? Because we did choose new numbers in the end.
Right, because they were both West Coast, and I used to have, before the ones I was picking up was East and West.
Yeah, there was one in Dallas, one in Los Angeles, and we moved them both to the West Coast. But after the firmware update and the change, it worked.
No, you still had to do one more step on the Deco. Because you found where it was storing the old numbers.
Well, yeah, but that was just a confusion of where the configuration went.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Just a confusion.
Just a confusion. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I mean. In the end, the only thing that I could see that might have made a difference to, because everything was set correctly, was that firmware update. After installing the firmware update, then everything was working. And that's not the way. I mean, Jim has his set to automatic. I don't do any of that stuff automatic because if it's working, why chance breaking it? I'll do a firmware update when I have time.
I'd rather just I had it that way in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it was like every time I wanted to do something, it would go, hey, there's an update. And I'm anal. I got to do the update before I do anything else. I can do it in the background.
Well, and I'm like, do an update if something's broken. Do an update if you found out that there's security that is. And maybe it was something like that. Maybe something in the update was like saying, stop doing this until they update the software.
But the only thing that wasn't working on the TV was Prime. It'd get the message you're using a proxy and you can't access us.
That was the oddest.
But everything else
But you've
worked.
got a US account for you.
Well, no, that was
have
one of the
both,
oddest
actually.
situations. She's using this smart DNS proxy. And so the ideal way to do that is you take these DNS numbers that they give you, you put them in your router, and then all the devices connected to your Wi-Fi have those numbers. And so when that was done, the numbers were distributed. Her Prime on her Roku, it's Roku, right? Yeah, on her TV was saying, hey, you're using a proxy. You can't bring this up. Disconnect from your VPN or proxy. And that's something that Smart DNS guarantees you're supposed to be able to do. And so if that had continued to be a problem, after we had all green checks in Smart DNS proxy, if that persisted as a problem, then you would call Smart DNS
recommended last week, right?
proxy and find out, hey, how come I can't use my Prime here? And they would run you through a series of things trying to get it to work, and they would ask you to try different locations if that was related to it.
And I had sent them an email and they replied a couple times, and the last time they said, well, you need to do da-da-da-da-da. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So they said, well, contact your IP provider. I said, well, I'll call Elon Musk and see if he wants to help.
Nah.
And see if he makes house.
See if they even answer the phone. It's an AI now that answers the phone. That's what his big robot is.
Those chat sessions are all, you have to be specific. No, I want to talk to you.
Hey, the chat systems, that's dumb. But their ability, I mean, what's happening with the language model stuff is amazing when you can just feed it a bunch of information like the company handbook or whatever it might be, and then ask it questions. That's amazing. That's going to happen at some point. It's going to be so much smarter at some point.
I do wish they were a little more flexible. And then the other interesting thing I found, I was cleaning some stuff up, and I found this piece of paper that said how to set DNS up on your TV. Just go to the settings, and there's 2 lines there. And it just, I don't know if it helped, but.
Oh, I'm remembering now. That was another thing that static IP addresses had gotten set on the Wi-Fi connection of her laptop. So she's using the laptop to access Smart DNS proxy, and it's persistently saying that she's got the wrong
people who are generally educated, people who work in jobs that require them to follow rules and pull things together. And when I was choosing a jury, I tended to look less at
I wonder if that's just not the case. It was because it was a really strange problem. Pop, welcome. I have just muted you because you're coming through our speakers.
I thought they were contributing.
What have I got going on? Here we go. Oh, and Sid's here too. Welcome, Sid. We've got a small group here in Tequilas. We got the 5 of us are here. And we were just talking more about smart DNS and a little bit about AI. I've brought some topics that ended up bringing me into AI topics. So I think the topics in themselves are great, but I started using them to play around with Gemini and discovered some new features, or you could call them features, that have not been available to us before. If you've been using like Gemini to help solve problems, one of the things that you may have experienced is that you're having to copy and paste text into the chatbot. You're reading an article and you're like, summarize this. Well, this is what I'm doing. Summarize this, make this easier to read. Give me the 5, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Give me the 5 key bullet points of this article. And if you tried to give Gemini the web address and say, just go read this, it would come back saying it is restricted from being able to bring in specific web pages and encourages you to copy and paste. That's all gone now. Now you can paste web addresses right into Gemini and say, read this and summarize this for me. This is amazingly powerful. And I recommend it to any of you that is looking at an article and you're having trouble wrapping your head around what you're reading. You can take this over to gemini.google.com and you can say, can you summarize this article for me? In today's club, what I did was I wrote down, this is after our news topics here, called AI Teaches. And what I've been trying to do is come up with creative prompts that you could use if you're going to use Gemini. And so we talked about this, I think, last week. I had a prompt last week. And today's prompt is, this is what I wrote to get a summary of content from one of the articles that I was providing today. Rewrite this article to be more concise and addressing an audience of 30 to 80-year-old students with general education, focusing on the consumer aspects and how soon it might enter the market. And so this article was about paper batteries, and Gemini came back with this. It said, this article discusses a new type of battery made out of paper that is activated by water. This battery is made with safe, environmental friendly materials. It is possible this type of battery could be used in wearable devices in the future, but there is no information in the article about how soon this technology may be available to consumers. Now, if you get a chance, I want you to look at the document I wrote, because I was playing around with AI and I asked specifically, how would these new batteries affect the wearable products? And it gives me this. The document is pulse oximeters, like the SpO2 sensor, GPS logger. This suggests that new batteries could make wearable products lighter, thinner, and more disposable. However, the document does not discuss these batteries would affect the cost, performance, or safety of wearable products. It's got this line at the end. I looked at the way I asked that question and said, there's a grammar error in there. I shouldn't have put the. If you look at my document, I highlighted it in red so you can see the example I'm making. So I went back to the AI, I pulled out the, and asked the same question. It would be specifically, how would these new batteries affect wearable products, not the wearable products? And I watched as I got the same answer without the however.
Without the disclaimer.
Well, that
for some reason.
Yeah, I guess you'd call it a disclaimer.
I would call it a disclaimer.
I've never heard of paper batteries.
Well, yeah, no, it's a great article on they're actually not, they're magnesium sheets layered with paper, whereas before they would be like a metal air battery. Now it's a paper water magnesium battery that they're, and it's an interesting technology. But what really fascinated me was trying to get through the information. I came across these idiosyncrasies with using the AI to help me. And just,
I'm not getting those articles, by the way.
Oh, you're not getting
You didn't
the
get the
email this
email?
morning or yesterday?
No.
I
It
sent one out
came this
yesterday.
morning.
Yeah,
I thought
no,
this
it stopped
morning it
again.
came.
I think I sent it
How
out.
about these sand batteries? That's what's so interesting.
Yeah.
Sandbag.
Well, that is another one of the news topics that I thought was really
Is that
interesting.
real?
It is real. In fact, they've already started
8
production
o'clock
on it.
this morning.
Okay, and so can we look into that?
Well, yeah, what the sand batteries are to use electricity from things like solar and wind, this excess
And then
electricity,
yesterday
and
was the
store it as
document
heat
that he
in
sent.
sand.
No,
The sand,
I
apparently, I
always
know
check
nothing
my,
about sand.
And
I'm
it
not
was
in
like at 10
construction.
o'clock in the
But apparently the sand is very important. The consistency and quality of the sand determines how hot it can be and how long it will retain that heat.
Okay, like that's the way they make molds. They put it in sand, they put it in 40,000 degrees or 4,000 degrees, then break it apart, but the sand withstands it. That's very interesting. So it may be able to maintain that heat.
I read somewhere, it was either in this article or the preceding article, because it all references a study. And so I was reading through the study. But it's somewhere in here, it says something, 1,000 degrees Celsius. The sand inside the battery can be heated to more than 1,000 degrees Celsius. And then they talk about it operating, be able to store up to 100 megawatt hours of thermal energy and provide 1 megawatt of heating power. And the idea of this is that it can be translated into hot air, hot steam, or just heat. In fact, I think I wrote a little thing here to make sure I didn't forget that, because next week I won't remember this.
Is it being used? It says here this train, it can heat a town for a week.
Well, it has been implemented. I want to say it's in the where is it? Finland. In Finland. So they have already started building these things. It says here it went into service in 2022. If you watch the video, there's a quick YouTube video, a concise YouTube video from the people that make the sand battery that explains how this stuff works. But essentially, you use the electricity to heat the sand, and then the sand discharges as heat over time. And that heat is a reliable, constant flow. So you can use it to make hot air or make steam or make hot water, and then use that appropriately. I mean, that's what most of our power plants do, is they do stuff like that. That nuclear power creates steam that gets turned into a turbine. And you could add that turbine concept at the other end of this battery to do whatever work it, or you could actually do geothermal heating. Like you could have a network of heating systems in a town that's just heating homes. They talked somewhat about that and said that the amount of power that was being dissipated from it could heat a town for a week in the winter. This is Finland, or a month in the summer.
Wow.
All off of the sand. And the idea being that you have, this is what's amazing about, you always think about that line, those people that say that they can't do it, or like being interrupted by the people that are doing it. It can never be done. Is being replaced by the people that figured out how to do it. Reporting numbers in their wind and solar that exceeds grid necessities. They're like 3% above how much they need in the grid right now. They have excess electricity. I can't believe that's not bigger news right now. California is rolling blackouts, right?
Then why are they rolling blackouts?
Right?
and
they
why
say
don't
this
have
is the
desalination plants?
This is the second time they have gone more than 30 days producing more electricity than they're using. And they say it's because of the solar and wind supplements. So,
But don't you think it's not common knowledge, because then they would have to lower their electric rates or something?
there's probably a good conspiracy theory out
Sure,
there.
it would
about
be
it somewhere.
economically based.
Yeah, it probably has something to do with economics. But what is amazing, though, is that California is reporting that they are in an environment now where they're looking for a technology like this, because we've got more electricity than we can use, and now we have to come up with really creative ways to store it. And traditional batteries are not the way. A sand battery, however, though, that's environmentally conscious. You don't have to worry about, dangerous chemicals or anything of that nature.
So would everybody have to have a little sand in their backyard? Where's this coming from?
I think you would look at this kind of like the way you look at a water reservoir. There would be this big fundamental thing, maybe in the corner of a development, or maybe a large one, like for a city. This is the way my mind's eye looks at it. But would it be scalable? I mean, could you have one be built underground? That was another thing they were talking about. Is these can be built way underground, so you could build your structures on top of it. It's just a pile of sand. Yeah. Well, you wouldn't be. I mean, like you build a foundation that had an area underneath that would have a large. I mean, instead of having
Your
a swimming
battery,
pool,
your sand battery. Yeah.
you'd have your sand battery, and you'd use your solar and wind to charge up that sand with heat.
At 1,000, that don't sound right.
You ever see a
At
battery
1,000.
blow up in a car? To the moon, Alice!
Well, you think about what's the worst byproduct that could come out of this?
Well,
A boom?
still at 1,000 degrees storage, it can't be on site. It's got to be off site.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want my house built on top of it. Or
Well,
the
I wouldn't.
playground, or the this or the that, it doesn't sound, it's kind of like if it sounds too good to be true, there's a problem.
Well, I know they talked about that specifically, how it could be built underground. But I'm not seeing it offhand.
By the way, you have your dad pinned up there.
Yeah.
Not only muted, but you pinned him.
Pinned?
Did not mean to pin him. There we go. That was not my intention. Okay. Anyway, I am starting to think we need to have a battery section of our club, because I keep coming across more and more battery news.
Okay. Okay.
I'm waiting for the saltwater battery to work.
Mm-hmm.
What about the hydrogen train? Did you guys look at that article? This
What?
hydrogen train, it runs off of hydrogen fuel cells.
Oh,
This is a Swiss
I
designed
used to
train.
experiment with one.
They just set some new record, 1,741 miles
Right.
without refilling.
Mhm.
They
And
did
the
it
guy-
on a track in Colorado. Are you familiar with that track?
I read the article.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't know the track. No.
You want to have a little funny Gemini AI aside? When I asked it to summarize that article, it said it was in Switzerland.
Mhm.
I'm like, I read the article. It's not in Switzerland. I told the AI, I'm like, your summary says it was in Switzerland. Wasn't it in Colorado? And the AI comes back to you going, oh, you're absolutely right.
Right.
Here is the revised version.
What AI are you using?
In this case, I was using Gemini. But
What would you recommend a neophyte use?
oh well, I like Gemini a lot, but the other one that's going to become just the go-to, and it's because of how Microsoft is presenting Copilot, is ChatGPT. You can put an AI in your pocket just by installing the Edge browser on your smartphone.
I have a question. So I've avoided Edge for years.
Yeah.
And they keep on trying to invade my computer. And I've avoided them because they were very, very troublesome to me back then. Does anybody use Edge?
No,
I do occasionally.
it's
Occasionally.
It's
Okay.
still to be avoided.
no, it's not to be avoided. It's just they had a great idea following the Chrome motor, and then they tacked a bunch of stuff on top of it, and so it became less of a great idea. They integrated it into their operating system so then it became less of a great idea. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just very Microsoft influenced. And to back up that statement is now you're going to be using the Edge browser, or you're going to pay $20 a month for ChatGPT. That's the proposition on the table right
so
now.
can you get ChatGPT with Chrome?
You can get a 30-day free trial or pay $20 a month.
Oh, so now it's paid for.
For Chat GPT, yes, it
Yeah,
is.
right.
They have a free model that you can use,
And
or you can use the most updated model for $20 a month.
what would be the advantage of the commercial one?
One of the advantages of all these commercial models, I can't say specifically for Chat GPT, but just in general, one of the features they sell you is the ability to fill up your own model and hang on to it. So like these chat sessions that I have, they break down and fall apart very quickly. As you get deeper into collecting information, it becomes more and more nonsense. That's been one of my experiences, is that many times hitting an AI right straight off with new information, I get much better results than if I'm like 4 or 5 questions in. Like whittling down information in an AI will churn up just garbage.
How would you compare the quality between Google and
Well, let's say, like, because I'm only using the free models, but one of the things that I like about these features that I'm describing is, for example, you could be a business. In fact, I'm working for a business where we have this this head of economics, this CEO, that keeps coming to me asking me questions about how we do last year, and I'm writing these programs that's pulling out this information. But you could pay for an AI model now, and you could say, read only these spreadsheets, and then you could do things like, how much work did Owen do last week? And the AI model would bring it out for you. One of my other examples that I was going to bring up today is, and let me get Gemini up because it has my chat session in it. And I asked it to review one of our other articles, the one about liquid memsisters and how they are functioning like synapses in the brain. And if you're not familiar with what a memsistor is, I've talked about it for, I don't know, 7 years now. It's this fundamental electronic building block where it's a component at the fundamental level that you can use electricity to set its value, and then it stays in that state. And that is not a principle that is fundamental to circuit design until recently. It's something that was fantasized about in the 70s. It was demonstrated in the early 2000s by HP, and they've been moving forward making this technology. This is like self-building circuits. I mean, this is like instant on computers, like literally instant on, like you painted it on, because it will not go away unless you change it. You use a system to set a state, and you remove that system, and the state stays. So in electronics, you have resistors that have certain values, and you have to buy them by those values. Theoretically, you could buy a memsistor, and you could say, set this one to this value, set these 6 to this value. They're all fundamentally the same component, but they've been set to be used differently. And this is a new concept in circuit design. To pull off the same kind of activities, we would have these broad, very complicated circuit designs that would allow you to do those kinds of things. They've narrowed it down to a fundamental particle.
so stuff that's online free right now, if you're not a business, can you access personal information?
Hold on, Irving. Let me show you what I'm talking about as far as getting them to. Okay, if you look up here at this screen, if you guys can turn around and see that table up there. So I recognize the liquid memsistor circuits that they're playing with right now, saying that they can replace synapses, they can make computers. And I'm like, well, HP's been doing that for 7 years, 10 years. I think it's been since 2006, actually. And I'm familiar with their technology.
Like 20 almost.
Oh my God, yeah. So I'm familiar with that technology. I mean, the most basic points of it, the general education I have. And I was curious, how does this compare? How does this new liquid technology compare to their technology? And so I asked Jim and I to do that. I said, create a table of relevant characteristics about the two technologies and list their differences in each respect. And he created a table with headers on it that says characteristics, liquid memsistors, HP memsistors, and the difference. I didn't pick those. It picked those. Under characteristics, it picked material, and it says liquids are made of special liquids. HP's memsistor is a thin film of various materials, for example, oxides, and the difference is liquids versus solid states. And so it created this whole table for me of this comparison chart that never existed before, because it has these characteristics from this article, these articles, and these characteristics from these articles. It mushed it together into this table for me to use to make decisions. Just like the CEO coming to me going, can we make a report that will show us how much billing we did for production over the last month? And I go, yeah, but it's going to take me a week to write it, which is fine. But if all that information was in here, I could just say, can you make me a report for all the production we did last week?
You just got finished telling us that it gave you false information.
All this comes back to Irving's point
Exactly.
of what are the features I'm buying? And the feature I'm buying is only use my information. Don't use any of the information you've learned on the internet. Look at only this category of documents. Now give me the information. That's the feature that's being sold to you. And I could take that software concept and I could program to it like a piece I'm putting in a machine. So that piece is trained on all our data. Now I can write programs at a higher level that are answering questions. Like I can concentrate on the interface that the executive's going to use for these questions. There could be the questions they want to ask every moment about a specific date range.
So is the writers of software now working on specific software that addresses the type of thing you're doing in this company, but now selling it generically? Like back in the day when I was a poker player, I had to do everything myself, run simulations all night, find out the percentages. But now they have programs, you just press it and it tells you what it is. You don't have to run and do anything yourself. Is that going to happen here with the type of thing you're talking about?
I very much believe it will. I think that what we're going to end up with, in fact, this morning I was reading about what Apple has released to the public. They call it multimodal learning language models. And I've only scratched the surface of it, but what I think it's really telling us is this is a framework for building AIs in all these different aspects and then interlinking them together to do jobs. So our AI experience isn't made up of one AI that has learned to think like a human. We've talked before, we're not going to get to that from this road. But it is a framework where you can have an AI that specializes over here, make things happen over here, an AI over here that has like environmental constraints, and you can tuck them together through this framework to make the best decision on when a button's supposed to be pushed or not, if I'm following this stuff correctly. And so our components of computing may end up being all these different AI models that link together.
What I'm trying to figure out is the program you're writing, what is the AI doing for you?
Well, no. My programming, the code I write is traditional coding.
Proprietary,
Yeah.
right?
It's totally traditional if then next kind of
Boolean stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, and the way the AI has helped me is that it is, and this is the free version of the AIs I use, they have been trained by reading all this documentation on how to write in the language. I'm writing in JavaScript. It's called Google Apps Script, but it's actually JavaScript. And the AI is familiar with all those languages, all those data structures, the way that, and so I'm able to go to it, and I'm not. I've programmed all my life, and languages change, better data structures are created. They have versions, and languages have versions. Are you programming in version 3 or version 4 of JavaScript? And so there are data models that have been created that I have not been educated in, but I've been educated in the fundamentals of logical programming. And so I can use a pseudocode or even just the rudimentary syntaxes that I do know to write out the logic to do something. And I can make it work, and I can say that's working. And I can copy that and I can hand it to an AI and I can say, can you make this more concise? And it goes through its library. It looks at my code, what my code's supposed to do. And it goes through its library of data structures going, you can replace this with this, and you can replace this with this. And pretty soon the code almost doesn't look like what I wrote. Structurally, it's doing exactly the same thing, but it has chosen newer versions.
Is it more efficient?
And it's definitely
Yes, yeah.
more efficient.
Okay.
Like for example, I can give you an example. An array structure is kind of like a shelf, and you go down this row of cubbies, getting information out of them. To get information out of them, you have to write a loop, and so you loop in the cubby, pull out the information, go on to the next one, keep going until you reach the last one. That whole structure, I mean, that could be 5 lines of code to get information out of an array. But what has happened in JavaScript throughout my lifetime that I wasn't aware of until recently is they've really advanced the data structure of the array, and the array can self-reference it, for lack of better terminology. So you can take the array and you can, because of the fundamental nature of an array, it knows it needs a loop. And so that's built into the array now. So now I can write 1 line of code that does what that 5 lines of code used to do, because it's been built right into that array data structure that you get data out of it using a loop. So it already knows how many, you don't have to count, it already knows how many items is in it. I was not aware of any of that until I stuck my data structure into the AI, and it said, you can do this easier and faster with this. I'm like, no, I didn't. Thank you very much. And the back and forth that I have with the AI is kind of the same type of back and forth I would have with another software engineer, where it's like, I'm racking my head trying to figure out how to make this structure, and it's just taking forever. And the other guy's got some more experience in that area than I do. It's like, hey, you could use this instead of that. You can use this instead of that. It's like having an encyclopedia that can talk to you. You can ask questions of.
So based on that, if I wanted to write a program, which I've tried and I can't, I can write what I wanted to do and ask
You
to
can
write the program for
you
me?
can to some degree. I like I was in Star Trek, where it's like, just make me a data structure, and it popped up, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't have to think about that, and I can just paste that right into what I'm doing. I'm ready to go. And so I really felt like an engineer on Star Trek, because that's all they ever do is they ask the computer for that widget that they need to put into the machine they're building, so that they can move on with whatever their goal is. And I very much have had those moments using AI.
So if I said to AI, build me a spreadsheet with the following information, and I gave it, let's say, 10 points of information, date, time, other variables.
I can do you one better. If you stick with public education, you don't have to give it to them. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was curious about how the display quality brightness of the different iPhone models compare to each other. And so I asked it to create a table of nit brightness for the various iPhones from iPhone 6 up to the most recent one, and it gave me a table. I asked for some other information like screen resolution and material make, like is it LCD or is, but it created a whole table for me of all the different
So how
comparisons.
does this compare, let's say, for a guy like me?
Yeah.
If I would ask ask Google this, or ask AI this, what should I do? Is it more practical to start using AI instead of Google?
It is
I mean,
the
I
same.
Google everything. I'm
To Irving, you actually don't have a choice. You're using AI whether you're aware of it or not, because what Google has done says we've got 10 minutes and we'll move over to the other call. And and Mom's trying to get in too. Here. Let me put her
I
in.
show more time.
I did too. He must have started before.
Yeah, it says we have 9 minutes now. Welcome, Mom. Your question was, should I just be going to Gemini instead of Google? Google has integrated Gemini into everything now. So if you want to have Gemini at your hip in your phone, you just install the Google Assistant. The Google Assistant app, which used to be the Google search that you could talk to easily off your phone, now has a slider at the top to slide between Assistant and Gemini. So you can treat it the same way you've treated the Google Assistant in the past, but you can have it go straight to Gemini. On the desktop, Google has integrated Gemini into your search results. Now, I've heard from different people that they're having mixed results. So I think they're rolling it out either regionally or they're rolling out in batches. But you'll have this experience at some point where you do a Google search, and at the beginning of the search, there'll be an AI result. And that will be right from Gemini. It'll be a summary of the information. It'll be trying to answer the question.
You gotta shut yours down.
I'm gonna mute you, Bob. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. Derailed all over the place.
Oh, yeah, well, you were, so,
Hey, Scott.
Google is using,
Google is using Gemini. Yeah, Pop. What I was going to finish that with is what I've read is that will convert into a feature that you can turn off. Right now, you have no. If you're seeing it, you don't have any control over it. If you're not seeing it, it hasn't been batched out to you yet. Their long-term goal is to have it as a switch that you can turn on and off. And they've also, what we've learned now, which apparently Google has been announcing this every year. They've been using AI results since 2021, 2022, and they have a table of what percentage of results were relying on AI. And even in 2022, it was 70% of the results
so
were
how would
AI
I jump
results.
from requesting information to getting consolidated information?
Probably the easiest is to go to gemini.google.com and start asking your questions there. And what I was saying about Edge, they're integrating ChatGPT right into Edge, and you can install Edge as a mobile, have the Edge button or the ChatGPT button right there on your phone, and you can talk to it, and it will talk back to you. And that's something that Gemini is not doing right now. Is it's not conversing it into a audio conversation. However, if you pay $20 a month with ChatGPT, their app will do that. And what we've found out is there are people that have been doing this for a while now. They have been paying $20 a month to drive around in their car and have full dialogues with ChatGPT. Ideas are popping into their head, and they're asking ChatGPT about it, and it's rattling off answers to their ideas.
Which, when I first started to experiment, when it first came out, the information wasn't accurate.
It wasn't accurate.
It wasn't accurate, number one, or it wasn't even as good as Google. It wasn't as comprehensive either in the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what Dad's question is here, and then we actually there's some more to talk about in this stuff. Something just most recently. Pop, what was your question? And you're muted right now, so you're gonna have to unmute if you want to answer the question. There you go.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to answer some of the questions you've been getting. From when I used Bard, I had a legal question. And I had written up a bit of a background and some questions I wanted to pose to an attorney, but I couldn't find one to talk to. So I just tried it with Bard, and I was blown away by the response I got. And this is before they had switched it over to Gemini. And then I kept going back to it, and it just kept giving me more information as they would give me things to try and information to explore. It just stayed with me. I didn't have to even search for it. It was like I just kind of entered the same way that I had started, and it just kept coming back to me. It immediately switched over to Gemini, and that's what I was dealing with. And I felt fortunate because it made me feel like I could respond to the situation as if I'd gotten legal advice, because it gave me some great advice, but it also qualified and said, I'm not a lawyer, so this is not good legal advice, but it was sure helpful. And all those questions I heard people asking you about what would happen, I was amazed at how it just sorted out my questions and actually proposed more questions to me that I could explore. So I was amazed at how easy it was to work with it.
That's great. Now at the same time, though, you always take it with a grain of salt. Like my experience with the article, thinking that the test had taken place in Switzerland, it was just an obvious faux pas. I had read the article; it said it was in Colorado. If I had asked Gemini after he consumed the article, if I had asked Gemini where it took place, it probably would have said Colorado, but the summary made it said that it was in Switzerland. And so those are the kinds of errors that these things are made. It's the reason this will never be general intelligence, because of the kind of technology it is. It will not be able to actually make decisions. And those kinds of problems are directly related to the kind of technology it is. It's a glorified grammar speller checker. We've said that before. And all it's trying to do is interpret the next thing that makes the most sense to put in front of you based on its pile of information. And in this case, it screwed up. It didn't think Colorado. The whole article is about the Swiss company. So when it's writing that summary, it's the next thing that makes sense is to put Swiss there. Not because that's logically correct, but that's how you form an essay. That's the subject of the entire article has been this Swiss company. So it makes sense statistically that would be the next thing that would be written in the summary. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and it also says that you should be checking all the code for their little errors. This is the final answer.
No, is absolutely wrong. There is no final answers. In fact, I stand by. If you stay in it, if you keep working with that same pool of data, your answers get worse and worse and worse. Yeah, Bill.
1 minute, under a minute.
Under a minute. Okay, we're switching over to the other meet right now. I'm glad Bill's paying attention.
Scott, I hope you can hear me. We have an appointment.
Oh, you won't be able to stay with us? Okay.
No, sorry, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
See you. Bye.
Bye. You guys have a good day.
You too, honey. And all the rest of you.
Okay. Are they in Arizona or Alaska?
They're back in Oregon. Testing 1, 2. Where is that coming from?
Up here.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I'm glad to know I'm surrounded by the same kind of smartass I am. So- Okay, we've got Bill, we got Chester. Here comes Sid. Excellent.
I'm back.
Are we missing anybody? Hello, Sid. Welcome. Both Jim and Sid have been sending me articles for the Computer Club, and I have not included any of them. I bet we're going to find a bunch of them next week.
So I asked Gemini an interesting question that I'm a little knowledgeable about, just to see what comes back, and it's interesting what came back. So I asked them how to find the best low limit, no limit poker games in Las Vegas.
Okay.
An interesting question. So first of all, they gave you some initial stuff about what it's about and this and that. Then they started naming casinos. So they do have a wide array, okay, and it tells you why. It says like the Wynn has a good selection, and the rate is lower than the other casinos. Then it goes to Aria, Horseshoe, onto the Venetian, and Caesars. But it brings out a very, very good point, which most people don't know, is that these casinos attract tourists who are less liable to be good players. So it's pretty comprehensive.
Well, again, it's an encyclopedia with a really nice front end for asking questions. And every time you ask a question, it tailors its way of thinking about what you're doing. So, I mean, quite literally, every question changes the shape of that whole experience. In Gemini, and I think this is something that would be a feature that you would buy. In Gemini, you can go back and edit the last question that you asked. You cannot go back to the original question, which I find myself wanting to do often, is I want to go back and change the first question I asked because of what I've learned now and watch the effects trickle through all the other questions. And that is not possible on Gemini. I haven't seen that possible on any of the AIs I've used. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's a paid for function. Yeah, Bill. Oh, I hear.
Can't hear you.
There. It's not personal, but we're finding Vegas more interesting than you, and we're signing off.
Fine. Hey, wait.
Yes.
Irving has a list of casinos for you.
We've got our list already planned. They're the ones that are giving us the biggest offers, and we're on our way to eat for free and gamble away.
Free offers. Those are the most expensive.
By the way, I hit a royal yesterday. That's $1,000, so we're ahead of them at the moment.
Oh, all right. You just paid
All
for
right.
your trip.
See you later.
See you, Bill.
Bye.
Bye.
They're in Vegas now?
Yeah, they're in Vegas now.
Where are they staying?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Someplace free.
Oh, they gamble. Oh, okay.
Oh, and I never did get to share with them Batterygate. I hope they got a chance to read that because I'm not going to have it next week. There was. I thought I had another. Oh, I do have more AI stuff. It's just not in here because I was listening, and I'm going to recommend it. I should put it on a recommendation. The Daily is the New York Times regular news post or podcast. I listen to it regularly. Today they have one on AI, and they're talking about where we are right now. There's a number of lawsuits that are out there right now. We're theorizing where this is going to go in the future. Right now, it's about to hit a dead end because they have discovered that OpenAI, ChatGPT's model, was trained against copyrighted material intentionally, knowingly. One of those will ask for forgiveness later we want to get this technology working now situations. I can see all that going down. I mean, I can see myself doing stuff like that. Like, look, it doesn't, none of that matters right now. Right now, we got to make this thing work. And apparently that's been the direction that OpenAI has taken. And they have sucked up so much copyrighted material that has now been outed. They knew they were doing it, that they're in a lot of trouble in court right now. And the court cases, as they come out, could very well, I mean, this is what's on the table right now. It could very well say, yes, what you did was illegal. You must rebuild your models. And so all this innovation that we've seen since last year could fall apart because legally it's not allowed to be used.
And those stocks would tumble. All those stocks that went through the sky would probably get destroyed, huh?
Disappear.
Now, because OpenAI did this, and what's blowing this wide open right now is because what they did and what Microsoft has done is they have taken, it's called scraping. When you get information from other websites, regardless of whether they allow you to do it or not, it's called scraping. And they had scraped YouTube for their video content, transferring their audio into text and using the text transcripts to train their models. Apparently they were all doing this. Google, there's documentation. I got all this from the New York Times daily podcast this morning. Okay, so I'm not inundated in this information. I can't answer a lot of questions about it. But apparently they were all doing this. And even Google saw that OpenAI was doing this. They witnessed this happening, and apparently there's documentation out there that makes it look like Google kept it on the down low. They didn't make a big deal about it, even though they were breaching YouTube's completely violating YouTube's terms of service by doing this. And the reason is because they were doing it too. That Google was using it to train Gemini, train their models. Facebook, Meta, they've got their own AIs they're working on. There's documentation now that they were looking at doing things like, they considered buying Simon and Schuster's, Simon and Schuster's, the publisher, so that they would have this huge catalog of English language that they could feed into their AIs and train them. And they decided not to. Well, I mean, that might be very quiet. I have no idea what's involved in the legalities of that, but they didn't even pursue that because they saw how OpenAI was dealing with Google and how Google was dealing with themselves. And they used the OpenAI model as the one they would follow. Basically, forgive us later, because the technology's too important for us to be bogged down in all these licensing agreements. And the courts aren't having it. And so we are going to watch right now. They're going to be setting precedents for how this works. I've got a feeling everybody's going to lose. I don't think anybody's going to win out of what happens. I think they're going to end up with, in my opinion, they're going to end up with cumbersome, laws, cumbersome laws to enforce that require groups of enforcement. This is going to require knowledgeable departments.
Bureaucracy of oversight.
That's right. To fix a problem that is genuine. Like, they are absolutely taking copyrighted material and modifying it in a form that whoever needed that material would never have to go to the original source because of what they've created. So it's like whole cloth stolen and put into another product, and you would never go back to that original product. There is definitely a loss there that copyright is supposed to protect. And so it's a complicated situation. They're going to have some judges that are like, the technology is the greater good, and they've done nothing to prove the technology is the greater good.
So don't get used to using AI because it may not be there
Yeah, no, what was being described to me in my mind, I was mad. So tomorrow, this won't help me at all,
Yeah.
right? Like
It
5
won't
minutes into
work.
the future, they're going to hit a switch where, and the scariest part when you let your mind go out in dystopian futures, absolutely these AIs will continue to exist. They will absolutely continue to suck up information illegally. Just now we won't have access to it, right? The corporations will have it. The governments will have it. They'll be making all their, but we won't have access to it.
That's the American way.
I feel like the AIs are like the first time. You guys have known me for years. I used to talk about open share of everything because I really don't care what Irving does. I want to know what my congressperson
Well, you're a
does.
communist, that's why. We know that.
More of a socialist, but yeah, a democratic socialist, but yeah. I mean, there's a part of me that passionately believes this, that if we could just give up on being concerned about, none of us are really doing anything the rest of us is really that concerned or interested in, but by creating these blockades, we don't get to know how Ted Stevens fixed his house. We don't get to find out what the ruler of Venezuela is doing, because he's protected behind all these different layers. I've always felt like hackers are going to level the field. They're going to end up WikiLeaks. That was what really made me feel like we were going to level the field on information. It was going to be everyone has open, and I feel like the AIs have done that. The AIs have made it possible for Irving to get access to information that before he had to go pay an expert to get access to.
They're cutting their own throats right now. So by starting out with an illegal premise.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So
no, you're absolutely right. Just like you go in, you can't just take evidence in a legal case. You've jeopardized the entire case.
just like you can't steal someone else's song. I mean,
and what's going to be really weird is because these are black boxes. They don't have to keep the data in the box. They can have trained the box with the data, so it's fully knowledgeable of the data. It's set up its synopsis, its way of making decisions. You could exclude the data maybe, and then you have something that's doing all the motions without the data, and you would provide the data to it. Just like I was talking about paid service, you could isolate it to just your data. The model's already been trained to make decisions and interpretations and all that based on all the data that they fed it before. They take that data out. You don't have access to any of that data anymore, but you have access to this final product that is kind of like educating an expert, right? You may not have access to the textbooks that expert read, but you've got access to that brain that read all those textbooks. That's kind of where we would be. And they have to make a legal decision on that, whether that is a legal use of copyright infringement.
Thank you.
You want to change?
So I got a question. Is
It's
this your
only
last
10.
meeting?
No. In fact, I think
Okay.
we will have in-person meetings until, I can't bring up a calendar right now. There we go. We will have in-person meetings until I believe the 7th of May. So two,
right.
3. And then I think I'm going up to Phoenix. The week of the 12th. The week of the 12th. I think.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna miss next week.
Okay.
yeah.
Well, fun.
Solvang,
Yeah. the
when do you
rally.
leave?
Huh?
When do you leave?
23rd.
What do you do with your dog? What do you do with your dog while you're gone?
Let the neighbor feed.
Okay.
Actually, usually my neighbor comes up and feeds them. This time Diana Lynn's gonna feed them. Take them over to her house. She just moved down the street now.
Okay.
And she'll feed him, and she'll come up and feed the cat once a day.
Nice.
The cat lives outside anyway.
Yeah.
So he hates being in the house.
Good to know.
Okey-dokey.
Yeah.
I may see you next week. I may not. So if not, have a good summer.
Hey, I
Leaving,
came with
Judy?
only one
Be well, dear.
recommendation, and the recommendation was I told you about that documentary about the children.
Yes.
So they put out a new episode. The last episode, the 5th episode, is a commentary on the series.
Actually saw that.
Yeah, it's really interesting that we live in this day and age of streaming and production, and so they put out a series on child abuse as child actors, and now they've put out an episode that is all the responses that they got from the series they put out. Like the final episode is, look at what this has done to our industry.
For the kids and people that like a little sci-fi,
Airbender
is a pretty good TV series.
Is that the Avatar show?
Yeah, the Avatar.
Ah,
And
okay.
the first one's
And it's live
cartoon.
action.
And I watched the first episode and I went, I thought it was supposed to be real people. The second episode is real people, and all the other ones are.
Oh, so it's like transitioning between, because it was originally a TV series, originally an anime.
Yeah, it's
So the first episode is kind of like this. It's like Star Trek Generations.
Yeah. And Discovery's going good.
Yeah, the last 2 seasons of Discovery's been really good.
Well, the new one's just started.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. It's the one before this, and what are we on? Episode 5?
I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah. And I've enjoyed these last 2 seasons quite a bit. It was kind of a trudge, a couple of seasons there. My wife got to saying, "I'm sick of listening to them give speeches."
Yeah. All right. Like Janeway.
Yeah, well, no, like Janeway on steroids. Janeway was the only one that had a speech in that show. Everyone has a speech in Discovery. All right. It's just Irving and I, so I'm going to say goodbye and shut this down. Thank you for joining us for the San Carlos Computer Club. We meet every Tuesday at 10 Arizona time, and we stream online on YouTube, as well as maintain a Google Meet that you can join virtually, or if I'm in town and you're in town, come to Tequilas on Tuesday, and we do it in person. Until next Tuesday, everyone out there, tech on. Later, Sydney.
So Scott, just briefly, if I wanted to write a program, let's say I wanted to write a spreadsheet program that does Boolean